Are you ready to create healthier, wealthier, and more beautiful spaces? My name is Naomi Findlay, and welcome to The Reno Show. Each week, I'll be bringing you a value-packed episode of incredible room reveals, hands-on renovation tips, upcycling hacks, and so much more. I am passionate about renovating for life, and I can't wait to take you on this journey, creating spaces you can thrive in. Get ready for our best season yet.
Hello and welcome to our show this week. A very special guest, a great friend of mine who I've known for many, many years. Bernice Ross will join me in just a moment, and Bernice is talking to us from Austin in Texas. So it'll be nice to get her perspective on this week's stories. And this week we're covering getting the sales on the Opera House. A really interesting story about how they actually did that. The house that inspired Barry Manilow, where Justin Bieber hangs out, house-rich Americans, and, would you believe, fishing from the living room. Back in just a moment.
Did you know you can save up to 70% on your staff costs by outsourcing the low-value, repeatable tasks so your team can focus on growing your business? Beepo is an outsourcing provider focused on the real estate industry. With an English-speaking, tertiary qualified and fully trained team in the Philippines, Beepo will give your business the boost it needs to start growing and returning value to you. For more information, visit beepo.com.au.
And as I said at the top of the show, joining me this week as my co-host, none other than Bernice Ross, who's been a friend of mine for, I was trying to work it out this morning, Bernice, I think it's got to be at least a decade, has it?
I think that's just about right. I think it was 2010.
Wow, been a long time. And Bernice, of course, is one of the best known correspondents and brokers in the USA market, and does a program very similar to ours in America, and has been doing it for quite some time. Very successful. Anyway, Bernice, we'll talk more about you, because Bernice actually is having her own channel on Property TV, so watch out for that. Hey, Bernice, let's roll into our first story, getting the sales on the Opera House. Now, I know you've been to Australia on a couple of occasions. Isn't that Opera House absolutely magnificent?
Oh, it's from my perspective, it's one of the greatest architectural accomplishments in the world. There's nothing quite like it. And what was required to build it is, that the architect there solved that problem is extraordinary. It's so beautiful.
Well, that problem in particular was, how are they going to get the sales on that, on the Opera House? Now, if you look at the shells of the Opera House, they're made up of a whole lot of different tiles. And I think at one stage they were actually thinking they'd put them up as one piece. But the interesting story here is that the person who designed them to go on as stick-on tiles actually ended up living in a very single-level home, which is coming on the market. Hence, it's come across our desk as a story. A fascinating story, that one, Bernice.
Well, let me add a little something to that. Have you ever wondered why he might be living in a home like that? Well, let me give your listeners a inside clue here. We ask, as brokers and agents, we ask, what kind of house would you like to live in? And people give an answer from up here in their brain. But what they really buy is based upon their brain stems. So if you want to find out what someone will really buy, ask them about their favorite house in childhood. And for your listeners who are buyers out there, think about that favorite house. I would almost bet you that when that architect was growing up, that there was a house like that where he's got a lot of good memories from his childhood.
What are you talking about? A house like an Opera House with sales on it, or are you talking about the house?
Well, no, the brick house that he is living in for his home. I'll bet you his grandmother's house is very similar, or someone that he cares about.
Yeah, I think this story actually features a few photographs from inside his house, and Steph, who produces our show is normally very quick. She's probably already put a few of those up, so that'll give you a bit of an idea. But gee, that's an interesting insight, Bernice. Thank you for that. Hey, before we go to our next story, I just want to remind you that Real Estate Talk is out tomorrow. The stories that we'll be covering for you. Anna blows the whistle on an Airbnb scam. This is a fascinating story. I might even get a chance to talk to Bernice about this one. Stable rents don't tell the true story. Values fall in parts of Wellington in New Zealand. Women need to be in control of their own destiny, and the property sugar fix. Those are the stories we're going to cover in this week's Real Estate Talk, which is out tomorrow, so watch out for that. Okay, Bernice, let's go to story number 2. This one comes from House Beautiful, the house that inspired Barry Manilow. I don't know about you, but I love Barry Manilow's music.
Well, first of all, that house is in Malibu, and I actively sold in that area in West LA and ran the training for 4,000 agents there. But what's interesting about it is you look at the pictures of that property. Well, the house is in Malibu. It's right next to Malibu Colony, which is extremely expensive, very private, could be 50, 60 million dollars. What's interesting, a couple of things. First of all, at 10 million, it seems like it's a pretty good deal, because in Malibu, one of my friends who manages one of the offices out there told me that they actually had a $6 million mobile home for sale in Malibu. It wasn't the mobile home, it was the land it was on. So oceanfront, Barry Manilow's house, good deal. And then you'll also notice what the architect has done that's fascinating there is that they've created a lot of private areas, even though their house is immediately adjacent. And that's what today's luxury buyers here in the States are looking for, that sense of privacy, great view, and there's a sense of real peace there. And I could see that would be a wonderful place to compose music.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's a photograph in there too of the piano. And imagine sitting there composing music, looking out onto those views. It must be right on the water's edge, Bernice.
It is.
Yeah, just an absolutely fabulous property. So there you go, Barry Manilow and the music. Story number 3, this one comes from Rightmove, where Justin Bieber hangs out. I guess if you're as popular and famous as Justin Bieber is, you can probably afford to hang out in a property that's for sale for almost £4 million. But just wonderful. It's got its own football pitch, a zip wire, as you'd expect, and its own private helipad, Bernice.
I like the helipad because it's good for getting in and out and avoiding the crowds. And that's, again, when you have celebrities, most of them, a lot of them are actually very reclusive. They may be one way on stage or when they're before the camera, but they really like their privacy. And being hounded by the press, of course, this is a way for him to get away from all of that.
Yeah. I wonder what sort of rent you would pay for something like that.
I really don't know about the UK market, but I could tell you right now that property would be selling for a lot more than £4 million. And this, in Los Angeles or in one of the prime locations here in the States, it'd be a whole lot more than that. Yeah.
There are some spectacular homes, and we've featured a few in this show too, spectacular homes in the States that just have got, I think I recall seeing once a home that actually even had not its own helipad, but had its own airport runway. John Travolta, I think, has got his own 747 or whatever it is, and it's got a hangar that's adjacent to his house. I mean, that's the ultimate, I would have thought.
Of course, having your own jet is like, you've arrived, but it has to be, it can't just be a little Learjet. It has to be, if you need a 737 or something bigger if you really want to impress your friends.
Yeah, I'd actually be happy just with a helicopter.
I'd be happy to get a ride on the helicopter.
I've been on a few helicopters, and it's really quite hairy. I love it when they sort of go like that and then take off. It's really quite exciting. We're going to take a very short break. My guest
in the air just like that is wonderful.
Yeah, we're going to take a very short break. My guest is Bernice Ross, and she's coming to us live from Austin, Texas. And we'll come back in just a moment. I want to talk about house rich Americans and a fascinating story right at the end about being able to fish in your own living room, only in America. We'll be back in just one moment.
Your business card is a vital selling tool and a constant visual reminder of who you are, what you do, and more importantly, how you can be contacted. Introducing our new Velvet business cards, featuring a luxurious premium laminate that has a velvet texture and is soft to the touch. Printed on a resilient 450 GSM card, these cards can be printed with a range of spot gloss and foiling options to give your office that prestigious look.
Welcome back to the show. My co-host this week is Bernice Ross, and Bernice has a number of wonderful radio programs in the USA and is working with agents and brokerages all over the US all the time. Bernice, great to have you in the show. Let's have a look at a story from CNBC. House-rich Americans, rising home prices and conservative borrowing have today's homeowners sitting on a record amount of potential cash. Are you hearing this as a general story around the States, Bernice?
Well, first of all, what's happening here in the U.S., I've just interviewed a number of the top female brokers for our Women Up initiative across the country. And pretty much what's happened here in the U.S., we lost 10% of our inventory during the recession to rentals. So now the housing inventory is being squeezed. That's the part that's for sale. That's not held by investors. And what has happened is right now there is a tremendous demand for entry-level houses, and the best way to describe the mid-market across the country is kind of squishy. Some places it's okay. It's not great. Others it's quiet. The ultra high end, the luxury market, they are already starting to see price reductions. And when you start seeing price reductions, the cycles here in the U.S. tend to be 10-year cycles. We're due for another downturn. And historically, it hits right after the presidential election. Presidential elections, you want the economy to be good. I heard just a bit ago on the news here that our stock market is within a few points of being at an all-time record high. Earnings are up, so things are good. We have all the political craziness going on here. Who knows this year? All bets are off.
Yes, it's really interesting. We do get to watch a lot of what happens, and I don't want to get political because it's not what this show is all about. But
it's a soap opera. It's like you can't take your eyes off of it.
I know, it is quite amazing. I think your president has taken reality TV to a whole different level. It's like something
I didn't think we were going to get it in the White House, but there you go.
Exactly. But anyway, just that's wonderful. Hey, Bernice, I'm really excited to bring this last story because, and we're going to play a video here because I say again, only in America would someone build a home, but before that actually build a lake to have the home on so that he can indulge himself in fishing. This story comes from Lighter Side. What we might do, Bernice, I think Steph is ready. We'll just roll the video, show you a section of this. It only goes for about a minute, but it tells a wonderful story. Back in just a moment.
Down the road there is where Paul Phillips is building his house. Folks are fascinated, and I bet some of them think he's crazy. But he just loves to fish.
I love fish. I fish every day.
And that's how this all started. See, he was fishing at Lake Oolaga. A guy told him he couldn't fish where he was fishing. Made him angry.
One of these days, I'll have a place of my own where nobody can tell me I can't fish there.
And this is it. First, he needed a place to put the fish.
I rented me a bulldozer and dug the pond.
They started building the house back in September, and he says neighbors are as excited as he is.
The lady next door, she loves to fish, and this lady here, she can't wait till spring gets here so she can hear the frogs hollering.
Well, then we went inside. He wanted to show me a feature that will allow him to fish whenever he wants.
Right where you're standing, there'll be a 4x4 hole there. You'll be able to sit right here in the rocking chair and
Carpenter Randy Ashelman says he never built anything like this before, but it's kind of fun. There's plenty of room to fish off the porch on 3 sides. The house, 1,850 square feet.
2 bedrooms upstairs and a bath, and then downstairs there's a bedroom and 2 baths.
And he thinks one more really good rain will fill up the pond.
People think I'm crazy, They really do. They say, no.
Yes, but sometimes you have to be a little crazy to get what you want.
Right here will be the hole. It'll be 4x4.
Bernice, Only in America.
This is more like only in the south part of America.
Okay, fair enough. Let's make a
And
definition.
Oklahoma, oh yes, it could happen here in Texas, depending where you are, or some other places in the country where they like to fish. The South for the most part here, the southern states love to fish. So a lot of people love this, and this is great. But the question I would have for him, what are you thinking? Because Oklahoma's in the middle of what we call Tornado Alley, and they get tons of tornadoes in Oklahoma. So what happens to that structure when you've got this big space underneath and a tornado comes through?
Yes.
There goes the fish and there goes the house.
You'd have to hope that he's got a lot of good pylons in the ground to hold the house down. I guess in those tornadoes, it does actually suck up fish as well, doesn't it?
Oh, if those of you who've seen The Wizard of Oz, you've heard the term raining cats and dogs. Actually, yes. Animals do, get sucked up by tornadoes sometimes. We've got here in Dallas, which is also on Tornado Alley, they suck up semis. You could see when semis have been tossed around through the air and spun around. So it's a little crazy here when we get those storms like that.
I thought it was crazy enough when I originally watched that video to think that someone would build out over a lake. But then I was shocked to hear that he actually built the lake as well, and he will stock it with fish. What sort of fish would he put in there? Do you know?
Oh, it depends if he's in, it depends given that he's here in the southern part of the country, it could be catfish, but it could be something else too.
Oh, okay.
There are different kinds of fish. But what you're really seeing is more like a retention pond, which is here. We see this here in Austin to collect water when sometimes we can get 10 inches of rain in a very short period of time. So those are used for that, but they build those kind of ponds that you're looking at for cattle to drink out of. So if you were to go into the farming areas here in Texas, you would see a lot of ponds like that, and they fish out of those. So he's just taking it to a new level. Build a house over it, cut a hole in the floor of the house and fish away.
Yeah, I sometimes think that when you have a house like that, you have to think of when you're going to sell it. And I would have thought that the number of buyers on the ground for a house like that would probably be fairly limited. So there's a fairly good chance that he's actually overcapitalized a little bit.
I actually think that he could probably get what he wants for it, because there'll be somebody who's, where that's going to be such a unique thing, and say, hey man, we can go fishing. It's cold out there. We sit there by the fireplace and drink our beer. We're ready to go.
Yeah, that's very true. So what do we say? Only in South America?
That would be below the equator. So in the southern states of the U.S.
Southern states of the U.S. Bernice, it's always a delight talking to you, my friend. Thank you very much. It's been wonderful to have you in the show. We look forward to seeing the Bernice Ross channel on Property TV. All of our shows, of course, on there, propertytv.io. Reminder once again, Real Estate Talk is out tomorrow, and our auction update show with Kevin Brogan will be out a little bit later today. Bernice Ross, love you, my friend. Look forward to talking to you again really soon. Thanks for your time.
Thanks, Kevin.